Hi, welcome to the MAAP Community Call. This is Deborah Hamilton, and I'm so glad all of you are here. Tonight, we're going to talk about three things that are of the utmost importance, especially in my office this week. One is relationship breakups with a pet. The other is senior dogs and how to manage them if something happens to you. There was a huge article on how hard it is to adopt out senior dogs who have lived in their home their entire life and then find themselves in the shelter. So they're not necessarily the number one dog asking to be taken home. What can you do to avoid that? And then finally, I'm going to touch just a little bit on euthanasia and the ability to really work with different independent groups that help you make those decisions in a very empathetic and compassionate way. I have a podcast coming out on Why Do Pets Matter with Valerie Adams, and she has really spearheaded for the last 30 years compassionate euthanasia before it was a thing. So before we start, of course, I'm going to check in with all my community and see how everybody's doing. I'm going to start with you, Connie. How's everything? We missed you last week.
Well, I am sorry that I was not able to join. I had an inoperative microphone on my computer, even though my laptop is less than a year old. But a quick 45-minute trip to the Geek Squad on Saturday solved it. It was something very simple, like a driver update, which my system didn't ping me for. But anyway, now I know to actively look for updates. We are fine here in California. I am this week going to enter the Kennel Club of Beverly Hills cluster with now champion Casey. And
Good for
it will be
you.
very,
Go for it.
Thank you. It will be very nice to be able to put in best of breed as the class on the entry form, finally, after all this COVID nonsense with dog shows. But as far as the ubiquitous California disasters, we have gone from the month of December, where we got 10.5 inches of rain here in LA, all in one fell swoop, to cold, but very dry and very windy January in the entire state of California. And in fact, last weekend, we had hurricane force winds throughout our foothills and the Inland Empire, Riverside County and San Bernardino County, east of LA. And there was one park in Laverne, which is kind of a college town, which had all its 100-year-old trees just about go poof on the ground. And on the 5 o'clock news. No, fortunately, nobody was hurt. There were a lot of lovely homes that had some of the big trees go right smack into the middle of the second story. Again, fortunately, no one was hurt. But then on last night's news, when I was making the dogs dinner, a very attractive young woman was standing in one piece, again, fortunately, outside her home in Pomona, home of the LA County Fairplex that hosts Kennel Club of Beverly Hills. And she had a massive tree that was right smack in cutting her ranch house in two.
Oh my God.
So she was
grateful to be alive.
She was absolutely, boy, did she use 8 of her 9 lives. Absolutely. So that's what we're going through. But again, for the purposes of this podcast, what do you do if suddenly your entire house is red tagged by the city and, you've got to wait for insurance adjusters, and then you've got to wait for reconstruction, sometimes the demolition of the whole shooting match. So where do you go with your dog? Where do you go with your cat?
That's another key, demolition, right?
Demolition. I love it.
Right?
I love it. But in California,
disaster has created the pathway for demolition. And what are you going to do with your animals?
You bet. And in California, that's a real deal. I mean, when we have wildfires, when we have trees falling on houses in high winds, when we have floods, when we have mudslides, the demolition always follows the disaster.
And quite frankly, when you're renting either from a VRBO or from any landlord, there are not that many available that take animal, one animal or multiple animals. You have to make a plan with a friend. We all know this because it's one of the D's. You always have to think about, even though you're nowhere near the big trees that are going to fall smack dab in the middle of your house, you should always have that plan in place because you have to be prepared for disasters, disease, now demolition, delay, divorce, everything. You have to think about where the pets are going to go before they need to go there. And quite frankly, I was speaking to a judge today who said those fatal words that all of you know drive me over the edge and down the other side. Well, my son is going to take care of my dog if something happens to me. And I get it. And he will, and he may be perfect. However, I can tell you that those things haven't necessarily always worked out. And as I said to her very gently today, that is great. And give him 3 other names just in case for some reason he can't take her. He won't feel guilty if he knows that, well, Connie Kohler knows the dog and loves the dog, and Sally Anderson Bruce knows the dog and loves the dog, and Susan Capuano knows the dog and loves the dog. And so he can give them to one of those because, as my dear friend Yvonne DeVita came up to me after I gave this whole program at Women in the Pet Industry Network, she said, you know, my daughter is going to take all of my dogs and I don't have to worry about this. And about 3 weeks later, she called me and she said, you know, I've been thinking, wouldn't it be great if I gave her the opportunity not to have to take my dogs? And I had never thought of putting it that way. You know, not that your kids won't take your dogs or your sister or your brother or your parents, but wouldn't it be great if they couldn't take your dog, you left them with the name of the person who would be a likely redundancy, right? Remember, we talk about redundancy all the time. Have redundant people because you know that 1 or 2 of the people who are going to take your pet will not be able to take your pet when you need them to. It just, you know, they'll have a tree fall on their house and they can't take your pet because they're trying to figure out how to do their pet. So you really need to make sure you make this plan. So Connie, I'm so glad you're back. I'm so proud of Mr. Casey and his first best breed. We'll look forward to hearing next Wednesday how he did. Susan, how's the good girl?
Oh, she's doing good. I'm going to be picking up the trazodone tomorrow. She's just never going to really change basic personality, although I think she's settled down some. I put out some sunflower seed butter for her. Turns out she loves it. And, you know, I thought maybe that would make her kind. But I tried to pet her and she was like,
I'm doing a podcast with a guy named Doug Pointer, who's a trainer, and I think he lives in New Jersey, and maybe I'll connect you with him as well because he really does difficult dogs. So maybe I'll connect you with him later on offline so that you can ask him if he has any ideas or if he can give you some tips like Kathy did, because it really is something that's important to you, I know, to live a happy life with.
Well, I'd like to, yeah. I mean,
with Maggie, and then know where she could go if God forbid something happens to you, because she's so naughty that it's hard to think about where she's going to go.
Right. And she, like you said, she's reactive. Every time I try to talk to Tom or, you know, she's barking. I mean, it does, and it's impossible to have a conversation because she won't allow it. And
well, what is she doing now? So she listens to me. That's good.
Yeah. Right now, I think she's just sitting on the trampoline. She loves her trampoline. And, I've been giving her lots of bully sticks to chew on and,
good.
Yeah.
And although she's a little heavy, right? So we have to watch how many we give her so she gets a little bit skinnier.
Yeah. And I'm not giving up on Kathy. It's just that I have a situation going on with my husband right now. And but.
No, I understand. Life gets in the way. That's why Doug is really good too. That life gets in the way, and it's there's more than one way to skin a cat, but the cat never likes it any way you do it. So I'm just saying.
And I was thinking about what you were saying about making the plan. It's so important because I had a kitty that I left with my mother while I traveled to Ireland. And when I came back, my kitty had diabetes. Apparently, she gave the cat way too much food. It gained a ton of weight. I ended up having to give the cat insulin shots until it died at age 11. And, just how important it is to give specific instructions.
Right. Not to
Whenever
be a crazy person, but rather to help people take care of the pet so that they'll enjoy it with you and you'll get to enjoy it later when you return from vacation or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a thing, and I'd never thought of it before. And,
So we're going to write down what Maggie eats and how to keep her safe and maybe do some carrots or something. Sally, how are the old women of Borneo?
They're absolutely perfect, as always. We had an incident this week where a battery went low on one window in the alarm system, and so a beeper went off. And so Athena started trembling, moved to the other room, was terrified, and we are very hopeful to go away for a 1-week vacation. I thought, well, we'll change all the batteries before we go to make sure they're up to date. But who knows what happened in her past, but she's terrified of any alarm. So we just have to make sure that the alarms are up to date and no alarms go off when she's here.
I think that probably it's the invisible fence collar that may have in her prior life made her a little leery of sound. Irish setters, I have to say, are incredibly sensitive to those things. So I hardly ever use the sound. I always use the little beeper vibration, but yeah, she's very sensitive. They all are. I mean, all of mine are. I can't speak across the breed, but pretty much they're very sensitive to it. They're not dogs that are going to, bull through anything. So yeah, she's, and it could be that her ears are a little angry too. So maybe it hurt her ear as well. So
Oh, no, it's not possible.
no, not possible. Not possible.
Not possible. Her ears are perfect.
Of course they are. Of course they are. They just never were with me, but they are with you. Hey, Kieran, how are you?
I am surviving. I've had a strange week. I think I'll borrow Susan's trampoline so I can get back up in the world. But otherwise,
Did your friend get any sunshine? I mean, it was raining. So, Connie, you don't know this, but Kieran had a friend come from Ireland who was so looking forward to going to Tenerife and having a great time. And it rained the entire time he was there.
no, Connie, it didn't just pour. There was a sandstorm from the
Oh,
Sahara.
right, sandstorm. Sorry.
Oh, no.
And when this happens, there's a particular set of environmental conditions, and it's too dangerous to leave the house. So he was sort of stuck inside for the first week.
And he had to wear a mask inside the house.
Inside the house, yes. Yeah, it's quite amazing. So then it rained for a few days, so he had to stay in as well. It really came down. And now here's the funny part, and we never left the twilight zone. We just went from one twilight zone to another. But there was a sort of a reflection on the last twilight zone, and I think it might actually have an implication for the MAAP program, right? Which is, don't ask me how it happened or how he did it, but it happened. He lost his phone.
Oh my God.
Right, he lost his phone. So just think about this for a moment. So you can't go to a cafe without a COVID cert here. So sort of locked out of the system completely.
Yeah, because his certificate would be on an app on his phone.
Exactly. So we couldn't even go into a cafe for a few days. And then there's sort of the worry about the flight back because your boarding pass is on the phone. Now, this is where the Twilight Zone Part 2 comes into action. He couldn't remember his email password. So even when we did get a new phone, we couldn't set it up.
Right.
Right. So we had to ring up everybody and anybody who knows him in Ireland to see if they could figure out what his password might be.
Oh my God.
Right. So it took about a day and a half of asking everybody and trying everything. Now, finally, we got there. But I was just looking at this and the MAAP plan. when you say stick the MAAP plan on your fridge and everything, I think an idea might be, make a photograph of it or even develop a digital one-page form, maybe in a Word document, but then convert it to a PDF and send it on your mailing list. Not just depend on one or two people, but look, if something goes wrong, this is what I'd like to see happening.
So I'm going to go to Tenerife and kiss you, because that's what the P in publish does. So when you write it down, it is supposed to be given to your veterinarian, your attorney, and the people who you've appointed to be your caregivers, because like your friend, he could have called up his friend who was one of the caregivers or whatever, and he would have known this information. I always say that and I do this with my own family. I write down everything. And yes, I know if somebody gets my phone and hacks it or whatever, I guess they'll find my little notes that I do to myself or little emails that I send. But I usually try to do it. I'm not a super sleuth, so not really good, but I try to do it in 3 or 4 different emails that I give my sons the ability to know how to get into my password holder. The password to my password holder, because we have to do that. And of course, I used to have the Pet Home Alone app for your phone. But if you have a lock on your phone, then people can't get into it. It's not an ICE. Some of the ICE might be able to be attributed to a pet issue, but really that's why the old one about being up on the fridge is great. But if you can't get into the phone, but usually you can get into photographs, you can just hold down the pictures and get into photographs. So I'm going to add that to the training, Kieran, because if everybody takes a picture of at least in an emergency, do this, right? If somebody pushes the photo, maybe it'll be in a place where someone will find it. It's always the tricky part is, having somebody find it so that they can act within it. You have to make it easy, but you're absolutely right. When you have all this information about your pet, you need to publish it somewhere where people are going to be able to find it, like your friend. I love that he called his friends to ask him his password. I know that most of my friends would just run through the names of all my dogs, because basically that's what we do, right, Connie? It's the names of all our dogs. And it's the names of all our dogs for our life. So there are so many, and you could even have the puppies who you gave away. You could have their name in the whelping box or their registered name, whatever. So you're absolutely right, Kieran. It's something that is really important, as important as addressing the needs of your pet, as important as appointing caregivers, is making sure that everybody who's supposed to step in when you can't get there knows who the heck they are. Because I know that if Sally can't get there, she knows she's going to call Connie. If Connie can't get there, she knows she's going to call Susan, because these are the 3 people who are in my plan. Of course, that's not necessarily going to happen because, Sally's in Connecticut and Connie's in California and Susan is, in Virginia, and you're in Tenerife. I know you would come immediately. So you have your hand up, Connie. What? Let me know.
Yes, I just wanted to comment, rewind a little bit on a comment that Susan made, pardon me, when we were talking about Maggie's reactive behavior when, Susan, you want to talk with your husband, Tom, and you made a comment that got my radar up, and it was, she won't allow it. Having done competition obedience for eons of time, having terriers who
always say, I'm not
always say, since there are about 3 of us on this call with real Irish DNA, we can say that, and I have Irish terriers.
Yep.
You are the one in charge, and I don't believe in all this pack leadership, Cesar Millan crap.
Right.
But when I'm training a puppy, particularly a 7-month-old puppy who's transitioning into adolescence, living with older dogs in the house, and I don't care whether they're male, female, whatever, they all try drive-by sneak attacks on the older dog's food bowl. And we all know how that goes down.
Yeah, that
And
works well
so-
for them. They only do it once.
They only do it once because they get rolled over, a big heavy paw on their chest, and that's it. But what I do to prevent conflict is I'm the mom. That's why. And this is my kitchen.
And that's why.
And so you have to continually remember, Susan, you're the mom.
I did try to do that with Maggie. I tried doing commands and she will listen, but her attitude has been, I'm in charge, like
No,
she does feel she is. No, she does.
Because
feel
she is.
Yeah,
She is because you allow that. And I train with a very, very dear friend in our obedience club's competition class. And she is not only licensed all the way from every title you can get in rally and obedience with the AKC, but she's also a psychology professor at Cal State University, LA. So she brings a whole different dimension to training.
Okay.
And of course, everything is positive reinforcement. But her mantra continually, and especially because we can't compete with treats in our pocket or a bait bag in the ring, unlike the beauty contest confirmation. In obedience, you got to leave it at your setup.
Yeah, and you got to pray a lot.
And you got to pray a lot. But Pam's advice to us is you are your dog's reward. They should want to please you. So work with your trainer on that. Remember, she's not in charge. You are.
And the interesting thing, I'm so glad you brought that up. So I'm going to cover the three things I was going to say in about 2 seconds. But before I do that, the thing that I learned when I was training my dogs is that yelling and screaming and tying them up or doing whatever you're going to do or putting them in their crate doesn't work if you don't give them any reward or anything. If you simply quietly put them back where you wanted them in a sit or whatever and ignore them, they're going to flip out. They're going to do what probably Maggie does, which is growl or do whatever. And then you just ignore her completely. And then when she does something good, you go, great, wonderful. And you give her a treat, give her a reward, give her a pat. I know that a lot of the
Have a party.
Have a party.
I do try to do that with her, as much as I can.
It's hard to do when
Yeah.
she's misbehaving because you want to be reactive to her misbehaving. And
Well,
that
I know the negative stuff doesn't help.
yeah.
Not at all, especially with a fear aggressive or reactive dog, which certainly sounds like, that's Maggie's affliction. But another element, and again, I'm listening to you. You use the word try a lot. My life philosophy is be the Nike ad. Just do it.
Yeah.
And
be Star Wars. No, yeah, Star Wars. It's either do or don't do, no try, because
Right.
we really need to give Maggie, and I know that probably Kathy told you this, we really need to give Maggie parameters that are, these are good and these are bad, and this is gray, no gray, no gray, because I'm going to ignore you and you're going to be sad. So, she's good. She has, like Junie, he has to want me to pet him because he goes ballistic when I want to take him out of me. He's jumping on the chairs and he's doing everything and I ignore him. And then he knows he has to sit down for me to put the collar on. And I completely ignore him. And, he still is an adolescent and he's big and he loves to jump on the big chair that I have. It's one of those tall Adirondack chairs, and he jumps on it and sits in it. And I go, yeah, no, that doesn't work for me. And I just stand there. And then he gets off. He sits down in front of me, and I put his collar on, and he'll figure it out. It's just that we have a 2x4 space here, so you have to stop, and I ignore him. So that's the hardest thing is to ignore them when they're misbehaving and wait until it clicks. Because you know what the problem is? Maggie's really smart.
Oh
She's
yeah,
incredibly smart.
she's got your number, Susan.
Oh, she's
I know
so
that.
smart.
Yeah.
We have 2 staircases and she has figured out how to get around the house, how to evade all the, gates and everything that we've put up to try to control her access. And, she's gave
it's
up.
bad to have a smart dog. It's
She's incredibly smart. And, yeah.
It is, it is. And that's why it's so important, to make the plans that we make, but also I'm so glad this community is here to give you encouragement that you're doing things right. You simply have to do things again and again and again, however hard it is. It is hard. Let me tell you,
It's hard.
sometimes I do threaten, Junie's life when he's jumping up on the chair, because he's driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And I realize that's not really helping me, and it's really sort of adding the fuel to the fire. Up there she is. She's saying, "Shut up! Don't tell her these things because we don't want her to do this."
This is what I hear all the time, all day, every day.
Yeah.
Well, Susan, let me give you some encouragement. Because believe me, we have all been there, done
Yep.
that where you are. But let me give you some encouragement. Young champion Casey, who's behind me, fast asleep under the chair, is a rock eater. The Palos Verdes Peninsula, where I live, is one solid rock. There is no way that I could possibly demineralize my yard. I mean, it would be, I would have to dig down to China to do it. This peninsula was originally one of the Channel Islands off the coast of California. And then the sea came in or the sea receded rather, and it became a peninsula joined to the main landmass. So young Mr. Casey, from the time he was the sole puppy left in the litter in my house, decided rocks are really great to chew on.
Oh, no.
And he has an absolutely beautiful scissors bite, beautiful mouth, just like his mom, just like his dad. And one day I was grooming him for show when he was about a year old, and I noticed 2 chipped teeth in his upper jaw. And I said every expletive I knew and freaked out in the grooming room and took him to my wonderful veterinary dentist in Pasadena. She sealed the teeth. And fortunately, the show regs are, if you have an injury anywhere on the body, including to the teeth, as long as the judge can count 42 teeth in the head, you're cool.
Right.
So that obviously did not affect his show capability, but he has forever and ever, amen, been picking up rocks. Yesterday, he's going to be 3 years old on March 20th. Yesterday, he finally, and we've been working on this with treats, with everything, the drop it and the give command. Yesterday, he picked up a pebble in the yard, a big one, and he went to go flying in the house with it right past me, going in the patio door. And I said, "Casey, give." And he plopped it right in the palm of my hand. I had a party like it was New Year's Eve.
That's right. It took 3 years.
And it took 3 years. And his puppy teeth and adult teeth.
Yeah. So don't give up. I mean,
don't give up.
No, I'm not. She can be a wonderful dog. I try to give her as much love as I can. And sometimes she's receptive to it, and other times she's not. But I also try
It's on your terms. It's on your terms.
It's on your terms.
So she needs to know that if she mistreats you while you're giving her love, then that's going to be the ignoring. So, okay, so fine. You're on your own. And then if she comes to snuggle near you, put her in a crate, put her on the trampoline, put her somewhere else. No, because this is not acceptable. This naughty conduct is not acceptable. So absolutely. Kieran, thank you so much for adding that to the MAAP plan, because you're right. If you lose your phone or you have a MAAP plan, what do? You need to have something that's going to be able to be retrieved. You could put it in your Dropbox, which of course could be retrieved from any computer as long as you got on and remembered your password to your Dropbox. So I just will share that with you because of course I don't remember the password to my Dropbox. So quickly, before I forget, so remember, when you get into a relationship, whether you're getting married or you are getting into a relationship, if you have a dog already, make a plan for the future of that dog early. If you get a dog while you're in a relationship, make a plan for how you're going to share those pets. I actually just had a mediation that worked out beautifully. The attorneys were getting in the way, but the clients did a great job at mediating and recognizing how important it was to share the pet, which is the bane of my existence, why I do this. And finally, there are so many ways, and saying goodbye to your pet is is terrible. But there's a great book out by Mary Gardner, who is a guest on Why Do Pets Matter? I think the title of it is that They Don't Live Long Enough. So Kieran, right up your alley, talking about how important pets are to us and what you need to know, right? So you need to know, when your child asks for a pet, let one-eyed Leo guide the conversation. So that's before you get the pet. And then Mary gives you a book to help you navigate when they're getting older. And of course, when they are getting older and you're maybe not getting older, but something happens to you and no one's there, I can tell you that nobody wants to take a senior pet. Nobody. I take that back. Sally and Gordon love senior pets. They love senior pets. So they are the bane of everyone's existence. However, as Sally, you probably will agree, in the shelter, a lot of the dogs are in there whose owners have either gone to a nursing home, have gotten sick and had to go to the hospital and nobody can take care of it, or they've passed away. Don't rely on them just passing away. It could be any number of reasons. So if you want to see your dog again, make a plan if you're sick. If you don't think you can care for your dog again, make a plan, because they really, Junie is here laying on the floor and he's counting on me to be here for the next 10 years because he just turned 5. So I'm hoping he gets to 15, taking care of him. And if something happens to me, I better have a plan in place because he does not want to have to go looking for his food, or go to a kennel or go to a shelter. The beauty of show dogs is they are pretty malleable because they've been everywhere. Pets, not so much. However, you really need to make a plan. So, of course, we are going to check in with everybody to see their take on those 3 topics, because it really is important for the entire community to talk about what they think about making a plan for a senior pet so that if something happens to you, they do have a soft landing, what to do in a relationship, because I know most of you have had a number of people who you might have heard of who broke up and the pet was a big issue. And especially Connie and I in the breed world, people share multiple breeds, multiple dogs within a breed. They get divorced. It's like a nightmare because they never thought about what would happen. And especially if they have top winning dogs, what's going to happen? Are they mine or are they yours? And if you're co-owning them, that's a whole nother Megillah. So Kieran, I'm going to talk to you first. So what do you think about those 3 things? The discussion before you get a dog, if you're in a relationship, or if you have a dog and you're getting into a relationship, the discussion about the care of a senior pet, and also having the discussion at end of life.
I suppose just the starting point is, if I can tell you a very quick story.
Yep.
Very, very quick, right? Oh, this is many, many years ago. I had a football injury and my sister said, no, we go to her friend who is an acupuncturist. And abracadabra, I thought this was brilliant. About a month later, everything was ready to go again. And I went back to the acupuncturist and I said, what type of training should I do to get back into the football now? And she said, you don't seem to understand. Your bones and your knees are telling you they've retired. Right?
Well put.
And you're running with this. And the acupuncturist said, you really have to get it into your head that everything from a person to a fridge to a car has a lifespan.
Yeah, every season has its purpose, right? Under heaven.
Yes. and I think every relationship will have the beginning and it will unfortunately have its final moment. And nobody no human or animal can avoid that. So it's like the old story. You put the energy into thinking about that final moment, and then the entire path to it will usually go a lot smoother. So, as I say, don't rush into anything. Take your time. And what will the world look like when those 10 years pass or when your years pass?
Yep. Absolutely. That's profound. Great. Sally?
Interesting. Interesting listening to Kieran. I was reading an article the other night about wolves in a zoo. It was a pack of wolves, and the old female was doing poorly. So the zoo decided they were going to euthanize the female. And so they took all the other wolves in the pack, they moved them to the interior room. They euthanized the female outside, and there was a little hut outside that all the wolves could get into. They put the female into that hut, and then they let all the rest of the pack come out. Each pack member went in, they saw the female who had passed away, and they all took the amount of time they wanted. Some less time, one took 3 days, but it wasn't as if the dog went away to the vet and
Never
disappeared,
came back.
and there was another dog at home. Like, well, where's that pack member? And I thought that, each pack member went in, realized, okay, she's gone, and they got it in their own time frame. So yeah, end of life is it's very important. You have to think that through, because if you have more than one pet and all of a sudden one goes away in the car and doesn't come back, the rest of the pack members are going to wonder what happened. Where is that pack member?
They have absolutely shown that in horses now too. They will euthanize a horse that's doing poorly in a field and let all the horses come and say goodbye. It is closure for them. They've shown it in elephants as well, that everyone comes and mourns. Because if you are in a pack, as you said, having someone leave and not come back, and you saw them get in that car, I'm not getting in that car. That car doesn't bring me back. So, really that closure is something that they all need. Thanks, Sally. Thanks, Karen. Susan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the end of life is a really difficult one. And I had 2 Catans, and we did have a situation where we took one dog to the vet and he didn't come home. And I often wondered how that affected my other dog. It's a profound connection that existed there between those 2 dogs. And
yeah, it really is. And you do what's best for the dog that's ill at the time, because that's where your focus is. And I'm sure you made the transition the best way you could, because they don't necessarily let you bring the dead dog home. But you do the best you can. But yeah, it's something to really consider. And now, because of all the, euthanasia specific practices that are out there, there are more times to be able to give the other pets the chance to say goodbye. And Connie, last but not least, I know you just went through this, unfortunately, about a year ago. So
I did with less than a year ago with Bammy. She left us the end of April. And while she was 11 years old, up until 10 days before her death, she showed no indication that she wouldn't make it to 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And so it was a real shocker. But when she was going downhill, what was very interesting, and I've had this experience with other of my pets. When Bammy was going downhill, Patsy, who is her daughter and the mom of Casey, came to me the night before I took her down to the specialty hospital where she finally died. And I was drying the dinner dishes, and Patsy just came and sat at my feet with this unbelievably melancholy look in her eyes. And I could tell she was saying to me, "Mom, fix my mom."
Yeah.
And Bammy, when I took her into the specialty hospital, which is fabulous, and they pulled out all the stops to try to save her, she looked like she was going to be able to come home, and then she took a nosedive. And I got a call at 1:45 in the morning, and I made the decision with the vet, who was crying on the phone, that I had to put her down, and there was no way I could get down there in the middle of the night. And it was horrible. But my dogs were already, and Casey was a baby, my dogs were already prepared.
Right. And
because they knew that there was something very, very wrong. And years ago, we had a cat who lived to be age 23. She was fabulous. She raised 4 of my Wheatons. And in fact, Bammy and her older brother were around when CB the cat finally died of old age. And before she went, when she was going downhill, they would sleep at the foot of the bed, the two of them surrounding her to keep her warm.
Yeah.
And they knew she was in bad shape. But I do want to leave with one thought, that the senior vet who founded my vet practice 30 years ago and is now retired, left with me when I had to take a 15-year-old dog in to be put down. He said, euthanasia is the last kind thing you can do for your dog.
Absolutely. And it's the last kind thing that the veterinarian, if he's been your veterinarian for life, can help you navigate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you're not a vet who likes euthanasia, then you absolutely need to connect people with people who are doing it as a compassionate and empathetic process, because you are losing a member of your family, a companion,
absolutely,
loved one. And, you know, it just is so hard. It really is. It's life-changing. It really is.
It is.
So I'm going to wrap up. I will share that in my life, there was only one pair of nudniks who let me know, though I didn't know at the time, that one was not feeling well, because Deirdre always fought with Daisy when she came home. She was naughty and they always argued, which was why Deirdre stayed with her handler and Daisy stayed with me. But one February, Deirdre came home and did not fight with Daisy. And my handler, Mark Bettis, said, well, maybe they're all having a truce. And I said, yeah, maybe. But I believe that Deirdre knew that Daisy was sick. And within 24 hours, Deirdre's leg had broken. We knew she had osteosarcoma. We put her to sleep within 2 days.
That's such an awful disease.
It is. And so I sat there and I said, I will go to my grave knowing that Deirdre took one sniff and said, oh shit, she's dying. I'm going to be nice to her. And she slept on my bed with Daisy after Daisy had broken her leg, and we were going to take her in the morning, only because their mother had, when you have unconscious ability. So I had no conscious ability to think that she'd broken her leg. And so I said, she'll be fine. I'll bring her in the morning. I don't want her to go anywhere. I'm just going to bring her in the morning. I don't know why I said that. She was comfortable all night. She slept in my bed next to me all night with Deirdre. And then we went into the Animal Medical Center and the diagnosis was made. But it really does make a difference. And I know that Deirdre was thrilled, quite frankly thrilled, to be the kind support for Daisy in her last hours. And then ironically, so she'd been with her handler for years, right? She would come visit me, but she would always, if he was in the house, she'd sleep with him. She never slept with him the entire time he was there. She slept with me. So I sat there and I said, not only was she helping Daisy to cross the Rainbow Bridge, she was helping me cross the bridge where I would have life without Daisy. So yes, indeed, euthanasia is a process. And the book that Mary Gardner read, I'm hoping to have her on Why Do Pets Matter, is phenomenal. And so until next Wednesday, hopefully I will have my knee replacement. There's a little bit of a jigger in the ointment that I'm not going to get into, but everyone cross your fingers, send good vibes my way, that in fact the insurance company will say, yes, I can have my knee replaced on Friday, because they've decided that I need 6 weeks of PT before I have surgery, which is new to everyone, considering that this is not a new malady in my life. So everyone who's listening to this and everyone who's on this screen, please do me a favor, pray to whoever God you pray to and say, listen, she really deserves to do it now and not 6 weeks from now. And I will let everyone know if that actually happens. And you know what? Shit happens and then you die, God forbid. But I will, do whatever I need to do. But hopefully it'll be Friday. So I will let everyone know by text or email if it's a go or no go. And until then, this is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, soon to be Hamilton ADR. Please watch my videos, my Junie musings, every Tuesday and Thursday morning. Junie and I take a walk and I talk about something that I ask a question for you to ponder. And if you do ponder it, put a comment at the bottom. It's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's on YouTube. Just really thinking about how to talk to each other, how to take care of our pets. It's a gamut of animal related think things that I've been doing. So I hope all of you enjoy it. Until next Wednesday, this is Deborah Hamilton. Kiss your pets for me.